Hello and welcome to Weird Around Illinois. Today we're going to be talking about the top 5 cryptids you might find in Illinois, which seems appropriate enough given our podcast. So let's start talking and let's get weird. We'll start with one that is pretty well known to people who've been around for a while. They call it the Enfield Creature. This was something that was seen in 1973. It was seen by a young boy. Originally it was called the Enfield Horror, I believe. But it's a creature described as having red eyes, claws, gray skin covered in slime, and most notably, 3 legs. If you've ever seen a picture of this thing, it is the goofiest thing you'd ever see. I mean, it looks like maybe a combination of like one of the little alien creatures from Toy Story with 3 legs.
Interesting.
It's really odd. And then, after the boy saw the creature, later that night, his neighbors saw the same creature trying to break into his house, which seems awful. If you're gonna sight a creature, that's one thing, but for it to follow you home is entirely another. And so, what was going on in the area around that same time is they were having a lot of UFO sightings as well. So a lot of people kind of put 2 and 2 together and figured out this was one of the aliens from the UFOs that was going around trying to collect people or something. Hasn't been seen since, as far as I know. But still big news in Enfield, Illinois.
So is that just a creature that emerged out of the water?
No, I don't think so. I think
it's mainly a land creature.
Yeah, it was just kind of wandering around the town.
That's pretty odd.
Yeah.
Makes sense why it would be in the number 5 list.
Yeah.
Very interesting, but not quite the best.
But number 4 is a water creature.
Yes. The Lake Michigan sea serpent. Now, this is definitely an older one. Witnesses going as far back as 1817, which describes mostly a 30 to 60 foot long eel-like creature swimming the waters of this great lake, Lake Michigan. Sometimes it's called South Bay Bessie. This monster is sometimes described as having a reptile head and snake-like body. And as with all sea creatures, this comes with the complete distant photos that may or may not show the creature in its slithery glow. But this creature is all along in Lake Michigan. I mean, you've heard the Champy, the
Loch Ness Monster.
Yeah, Loch Ness Monster. There's so many variations. My head is starting to burn up because of how many stories there are.
Nessie. Yeah, Nessie. That's the Loch Ness Monster, right? And then there's one up in Alaska as well, I believe. I forgot what it's called, but there's a big lake in Alaska that has a very similar monster in it. There have been sightings of this thing, though, from the north suburbs down to Chicago and even on opposite sides of Lake Michigan. I've mentioned here a few times, I've seen some weird things in Lake Michigan, at least one of which might have fit the description of what they're describing here.
Yeah, and this would be a worthy cryptid to be on this list, mainly because, it's an underwater cryptid, which would definitely make it more difficult to see, but it would kind of align with, I guess, evolution in the sea. It could be very well possible that we haven't gone far enough across the ocean to find this thing, especially in Lake Michigan.
Yeah, I was reading an article the other day about these weird holes that they found at the bottom of Lake Michigan. And in the article, I was kind of surprised to hear that only about 15% of Lake Michigan has been explored.
Wow.
That kind of caught me off guard. We've thrown that number around a lot of times about the ocean, how only 5% of the ocean has been explored. But I thought Lake Michigan, being in such a populous area, we would know every inch of that thing by now, but apparently not.
Yeah, so that definitely warrants some kind of investigation to at least explore more.
Yeah, definitely. So, another creature that, while not you wouldn't say that Illinois is the state it's most associated with, but there have been sightings in Illinois. That's our number 3 on this list. That's Dogman. There have been Dogman sightings in Elk Grove Village. I believe our first ever cryptid hunt was for the Dogman of Elk Grove Village.
It was.
There have been sightings in McHenry, Illinois, which we've also investigated. And there was even a sighting in Chicago. Don't believe we've ever done a full-on investigation of that sighting, but we've definitely spent a little bit of time in the area where it was seen.
Yeah. So, do you have any details on that sighting in Chicago? Was that like
It was
in the city?
No, it was a
Around-
forest
out-
preserve.
Okay, forest preserve, kind of like just outside Chicago.
Right.
Okay,
Yeah,
that makes sense.
Like the far west, the far western side of the city, I think it was.
Okay.
Or southwest.
I was just picturing, an AI generated photo of Dogman running across like a city. Yeah.
Well,
Goofy.
they did get a cougar like in downtown Chicago
Oh
once.
boy.
Shot it like 17 times. Wow.
You don't want to be there at that time.
No. Maybe Dogman's too smart to be there. He knows how Chicago police are.
Yeah.
Yeah, big mistake by the cougar.
Yes. But yeah, so even though Dogman is not necessarily a top Illinois cryptid, it has definitely been seen here a few times, and as we've talked about with the Dogman migratory patterns, I think it's probably logical that he's following the rivers, and those take him right through Illinois during certain seasons.
Yeah.
Now, our number 2 on this list definitely is a more fitting one for Illinois, and that is Bigfoot, or more commonly known as the Big Muddy Monster around here.
Right. Well, down in Cairo, Illinois, and Murfreesboro was where it was officially the Big Muddy Monster, and they called him that because he was covered in mud and came out of the water and all that good stuff. There were other sightings around Illinois, though. One of which we might have talked about last week.
We did.
Yeah, Waterman.
Yeah,
Illinois,
Waterman, Illinois.
which is in the west suburbs.
Yeah.
And the general consensus, I've actually talked to a listener since that posted, and they agreed with, I think our general consensus was that it was probably a Bigfoot that the person saw. And if that's the case, then we have Bigfoot as far north as Waterman, as far south as Cairo, which is about as far south as you can get in Illinois. And you've got this big wooded area in the southwest side of Illinois called the Shawnee National Forest. And there have been Bigfoot sightings in that area.
Interesting. Yeah, so that cryptid is very much so across Illinois, and it's kind of special because that Big Muddy Monster has been in more swamp areas for most of these sightings. I guess minus the Shawnee National Forest, but...
Right. Yeah, and I find that interesting because Bigfoot isn't normally thought of as a swamp creature.
No, not at all.
I mean, you could make an argument that the Florida version of Bigfoot, the skunk ape, is kind of a swamp creature, but
Yeah.
Otherwise, when you hear stories about Bigfoot, he's usually on dry land in the middle of the woods.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. In the most north part of Illinois, you don't really see Bigfoot sightings, which I suppose
usually.
makes sense because there's not as much forest or swamp.
Yeah, I've never heard one further north than Waterman, Illinois. I think that's as far north as I've heard one. Which is strange because you do have Bigfoot sightings further north of Illinois. Like when you get into upper Wisconsin and Michigan and Minnesota, places like that. Like upper Minnesota is full of Bigfoot sightings.
Yeah.
And probably more forest though.
Yeah, that's true. So that brings us to our number 1 most likely cryptid to see in Illinois.
Yep, and that's Mothman. Most sightings have happened around the O'Hare area, especially like Elk Grove Village, places like that.
Bensonville.
Yeah, and people see him usually on the sky. I think like on lamps, stuff like that.
Just a quick aside here. I think it was hilarious. Our last trip to look for Mothman just a month or so ago, we were doing kind of a twofer. We were checking out an old cemetery in Bensonville, and we left our 4th member in the car to watch for Mothman. but nobody told her where to look. so this whole time she was like watching the cemetery and watching the road and everything, and there was this huge building next to us that like it just screamed Mothman perches here.
Yeah.
And I think that's where a Mothman sighting was. It was
Yeah.
like right there.
Yeah, that was like a FedEx or postal facility.
Yeah, and like all three of us noticed it immediately, and I started filming. And whoa!
Yeah. And then you guys didn't tell me to look there. He could have been standing there the whole time we were in the cemetery, and we never would have known.
No.
But that just goes to show, you have to be in the right place at the right time, looking the right direction.
Yeah.
But, so yeah, O'Hare's a very big Mothman sighting area. There've been a few sightings in downtown Chicago too, like up around the high rises. Sometimes people have written those off as hang gliders, or people doing daredevil stunts, jumping out of buildings with winged suits and stuff. But
Yeah.
I don't know. I think Mothman is just as likely as those explanations.
Yeah. And for that matter, you could say that for O'Hare or anywhere else, really.
True. Maybe they just think there are more crazy people in Chicago.
Yeah. Another area where Mothman has been seen is Waukegan, specifically Bowen Park. Comes to mind.
Yeah, I think in that area, Mothman literally went and like scooped up some children at a skate park and like attacked them.
Well, he didn't actually grab the children, but yeah, he attacked them. Yeah,
Okay.
He swooped on them. And we've been to that skate park many times, and heck, we just checked out that site yesterday, as a matter of fact.
Yeah, that area is very nice because there's even like some kind of ancient staircase that goes down. It's a very entertaining area.
Yeah, you just feel like something should be there when you go through Bowen Park.
Yeah.
And then the other site was, I believe it was McHenry, Illinois. There was a place called Lakewood Forest Preserve, and we did a search there for Mothman as well. But it was one of those things where, how do you look for Mothman? You just show up at a place he's been before and keep looking up.
Yeah.
So, I think that was the place we found the giant mushroom, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh, yeah.
So that was our top 5 list of cryptids to find in Illinois. I should mention a couple of cryptids that didn't make this list that were really, really close. One is the thunderbirds.
Yeah.
Those giant birds that people keep seeing basically all over the state. I used to say just in southern Illinois, but there are sightings, as far north as like the Chicago suburbs now. So
Yeah, there was they're mainly spotted around central Illinois, kind of like southern and central. Yeah,
and of course we had our witness on here who saw some down in southern Illinois.
Yeah.
And actually, we had a listener report of one as well, which we'll cover in another podcast. But those sightings are still going on. They've been going on for a while in Illinois and still are.
Yeah.
And the other thing that should probably be mentioned is the Wendigo. Not a ton of Wendigo sightings in Illinois, but the tribes, the Native American tribes that believe in the Wendigo, it certainly existed in Illinois. So it would stand to reason that the cryptid existed in Illinois as well.
Yeah.
All right, so that's our list. Thank you all for listening. And if you feel like there are some more cryptids that belong on this list, or if you feel like we got the order wrong, or just want to tell us about your cryptid experiences in Illinois, by all means, let us know.
Yeah, and we have an encounter form that you can fill out if you want.
Cool. Well, thanks for listening, and thanks for subscribing.